The Murdaugh family is an American family from the Lowcountry region of South Carolina. Three generations named Randolph Murdaugh served consecutively as circuit solicitor, the elected prosecuting attorney, for the state's 14th Judicial District between 1920 and 2006. The family's prominence led locals to call the five-county district Murdaugh Country. In addition to the legal positions, Randolph Murdaugh Sr. established the Murdaugh family law firm, now called the Parker Law Group, which specializes in personal injury litigation. A fourth-generation son, affluent lawyer Richard Alexander Alex Murdaugh, secretly led a life of crime that included acts of fraud, corruption, embezzlement, theft, and drug offenses spanning decades and involving dozens of victims, many of whom were disadvantaged. The crimes culminated in 2021 when Alex murdered his wife Maggie and son Paul using multiple guns at close range. Murdaugh's trial ended with his conviction and sentencing to 2 consecutive life sentences in prison without the possibility of parole. The case captured national attention for many years and generated extensive media coverage, films, and books. From 1920 to 2006, 3 members of the Murdaugh family served as the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Circuit solicitors for the five-county area of South Carolina's Lowcountry region within the 14th Judicial District. The family's influence in the area led to it being colloquially known as Murdaugh Country. In South Carolina, the circuit solicitor, analogous to the district attorney in other U.S. jurisdictions, is in charge of prosecuting all criminal cases within their jurisdiction. The 14th Judicial District oversees Allendale, Colleton, Hampton, Beaufort, and Jasper counties. It is the only judicial circuit in the state to cover 5 counties. According to columnist Kathleen Parker, the justice system of the 14th District was regarded as rigged and local attorneys would make a motion to settle a case rather than go to trial there. The Murdaugh family was one of South Carolina's most prominent legal families and were featured in the cover story for a 1989 issue of Carolina Lawyer magazine. Because of the family's decades-long control of the office of solicitor in the 14th District, they wielded enormous judicial and political power for almost a century. Following several criminal incidents involving Murdaugh family members in the late 2010s and early 2020s, their influence on the local judicial system was scrutinized. The Murdaugh family law firm, formerly known as Peters Murdaugh Parker Elsroth and Dietrich PMPD, specialized in personal injury litigation. PIMP built its success in the early 2000s due to a state law that made it easier for plaintiffs to forum shop. The law permitted South Carolina residents to file a suit in any county in which an out-of-state company owned property and conducted business, regardless of where an accident took place. In Hampton County, trial judges generally avoided transferring cases, and plaintiffs' attorneys had a reputation for abusing subpoena power. This legal climate led to the 14th Circuit District being named the 3rd worst judicial hellhole for defendants by the American Tort Reform Association. Because of PIMP's success in suing CSX Transportation, the county was known as a site of pilgrimage for those with personal injury lawsuits against railroads. PIMP's offices became known locally as the house that CSX built. Due to the firm's activities, doing business in Hampton County became a legal liability, resulting in the county losing potential employers. Reforms enacted in 2005 by both the state Supreme Court and state legislature changed South Carolina's corporate venue law, ending plaintiffs' ability to easily forum shop in Hampton County. PIMP changed its name to the Parker Law Group in 2022, shortly before Alex Murdaugh's murder trial. Murders and other legal issues. As of August 2025, Alex Murdaugh faced a total of 102 grand jury criminal charges and 19 indictments relating to fraud and drug offenses. There were 3 charges from the Hampton County Grand Jury and 99 from the state grand jury. Murdaugh is also a defendant in 3 separate lawsuits. He has been disbarred, has had his assets seized, and is currently serving 2 consecutive life sentences for the murders of his wife and son. Alex is involved in a lot of ongoing investigations and legal issues. The following are some of them. Murder of Stephen Smith. On July 8, 2015, Stephen Smith, a 19-year-old nursing student at Orangeburg, Calhoun Technical College, was found dead from blunt force trauma on a rural road in Hampton County, approximately 15 miles from the Murdaugh family's Moselle estate. The case was initially ruled a hit and run, with no suspect arrested. Smith was openly gay and a high school classmate of Alex's oldest son, Buster. Witnesses interviewed as part of the original investigation repeatedly implicated Buster as having been involved in a relationship with Smith, but the case went cold. According to the Greenville News, rumors hinting at a cover-up and the possible involvement of one or more members of the Murdaugh family began circulating around the Hampton County area soon after Smith's death. According to the Beaufort County Island Packet, the case reeked of insider interference. In June 2021, South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, SLED, reopened the investigation into Smith's death based on evidence found while investigating the deaths of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh. On March 22, 2023, SLED announced Smith's death was a murder and not a hit-and-run accident. No charges or indictments have been issued relating to Smith's killing as of August 2025. Buster released a statement to the press denying his involvement, in which he said that he was at the family beach house in Edisto Beach with his mother and brother when Smith was killed, and that these baseless rumors of my involvement with Stephen and his death are false. Death of Gloria Satterfield. On February 2, 2018, the Murdaugh's longtime housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, suffered a severe head injury when she allegedly was tripped by one of the Murdaugh's dogs and fell down the front steps of the family home on the Moselle estate. She died in a hospital on February 26, 2018, of complications related to the fall, including a stroke. The incident had been reported as a trip and fall accident, but no coroner was notified, no autopsy was performed, and the death certificate, incongruously, attributed the death to natural causes. A coroner testified that describing her death on the death certificate as natural was improper. Satterfield's two sons were awarded a $4.3 million insurance policy payout from the Murdaugh's insurer for her accidental and/or natural death, but by 2021, they had not received any money. According to sources, Alex Murdaugh, banker Chad Westendorf, and attorney Corey Fleming conspired to steal the payout by diverting the money to Alex's bank account, then not notifying the Satterfields that the payout had occurred. The Satterfields, represented by malpractice attorney Eric Bland, were ultimately able to recover more than $6.5 million during subsequent lawsuits. On September 15, 2021, authorities announced they opened a criminal investigation into Gloria Satterfield's death. In June 2022, authorities received permission to exhume her body to continue investigating her death. In August 2023, Corey Fleming pleaded guilty to 23 charges, including breach of trust with fraudulent intent and money laundering, and was subsequently sentenced to 13 years, 10 months in prison and disbarred. On November 28, 2023, Murdaugh pleaded guilty to embezzling the insurance money and was sentenced to 27 years in prison for this and other financial crimes. Chad Westendorf was not indicted and was dropped from the subsequent lawsuits, but his bank CEO was fired. Death of Mallory Beach. In February 2019, Alex's younger son, Paul Murdaugh, was charged with 3 felonies following the death of his teenage friend, Mallory Beach, in a boating accident. Paul's blood alcohol content was 0.286, over 3 times the legal limit for operating a motor vehicle. Though at the time of the accident, Paul was underage and the legal limit did not apply. Yet despite being the driver of the boat, Paul was not given a field sobriety test, was not taken to jail for booking, nor was he ever handcuffed. This led to the speculation that he had received special treatment owing to his family connections. The judge denied a prosecutorial request that he wear an alcohol monitor. In their wrongful death lawsuit against the Murdaughs, Beach's family implicated Alex and Buster in providing alcohol to the then underage Paul. As of September 2021, SLED was investigating allegations that police may have been pressured not to charge Paul. The family of Connor Cook, one of the teens aboard the boat during the accident, filed a lawsuit claiming Alex had encouraged them to retain attorney Corey Fleming in order to orchestrate the protection of Paul. The Beach case began the unraveling of Alex's criminal enterprise by exposing information that led to an inquiry into his alleged financial wrongdoing. In the days before the killing of Maggie and Paul, a judge had scheduled a hearing to consider a motion to compel Alex to turn over his financial records. Likewise, Maggie had arranged for a forensic accountant to review the family finances. Assisted suicide fraud. On September 3, 2021, Alex resigned from his law firm, Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Eltsroth, and Dietrich, PMPD, after the firm confronted him over suspected embezzlement. According to the New York Times, the amount involved was in the millions. From this point forward, Alex Murdaugh's house of cards began to collapse, and the case became a national sensation, making regular mainstream headlines. The following day, Alex was grazed by a gunshot to the head while changing a tire on a rural road. He claimed a truck slowed down, shot him, and drove away. The injury was superficial, and he was released from the hospital soon after. On September 6th, Alex released a statement saying he was entering a rehabilitation facility in Orlando, Florida, for substance abuse treatment. On September 14th, SLED announced that Alex's former client and distant cousin, Curtis Edward Smith, who had also been Alex's source for an oxycodone addiction, had been arrested for having conspired with Alex to kill him in the roadside shooting. Alex's death would allow his son Buster to receive a $10 million insurance payout. Smith was charged with assisted suicide, aggravated assault and battery, and insurance fraud. Alex, suffering from massive depression and wanting to kill himself, admitted to concocting the assisted suicide as a murder scheme. He claimed he was motivated by mistaken belief that Buster would not receive the insurance money if Alex committed suicide himself. On November 4th, the Hampton County Grand Jury issued 3 charges against Alex in the assisted suicide scheme. Curtis Edward Smith denied the version of events. He said it had nothing to do with insurance fraud and that he never shot Alex, only pointed the gun towards the sky and fired to scare sense into Alex. Embezzlement. Attorney Justin Bamber represents 8 people, including the sons of Gloria Satterfield, from whom he says Alex stole money while serving as their lawyer. He later said the total number of embezzlement victims might be between 30 and 50, and the total amount stolen could be as high as $20 million. According to the Island Packet, it is unclear what became of the money. Hakeem Pinkney was a deaf African-American man involved in a 2009 traffic accident that required permanent life support. Murdaugh personally represented Pinkney's family in a lawsuit against the manufacturer of the tires on the vehicle. The family was awarded a settlement. In 2011, Pinkney died at a care facility after his ventilator was, according to a Pinkney lawyer, mysteriously unplugged. Pempt handled a wrongful death lawsuit against the care facility. Murdaugh allegedly introduced Pinkney's family to Russell Lafitte, the CEO of Palmetto State Bank, to manage the Pinkney finances due to the size of the settlements. The Pinkneys received some money, but an estimated $800,000 to $1 million went missing. In January 2022, the board of Palmetto State Bank fired Lafitte after allegations came to light that he conspired with Alex to defraud Pinkney. The family of Blondell Gray, who was killed in an ambulance crash in 2012, is currently owed more than $112,000, which was stolen by Alex. 70, the mother of Sandra Taylor, a Beaufort resident killed by a drunk driver in Colleton County in 2019, received only $30,000 of a $180,000 settlement. Murdaugh pleaded guilty and was sentenced on November 28, 2023, to 27 years in prison for these and other financial crimes. Charges for narcotics distribution. In June 2022, Alex Murdaugh was indicted on 2 counts by the state grand jury related to conspiring with accomplice Curtis Edward Smith, a distant cousin, to purchase and distribute narcotics using a money laundering scheme involving $2.4 million in stolen money. The indictment alleges that Murdaugh and Smith used hundreds of illegal transactions to facilitate the acquisition and distribution of illegally obtained narcotics in several counties throughout South Carolina over 8 years starting in 2013. Lindsay Edwards allegations. In August 2022, a South Carolina-based former sex worker named Lindsay Edwards was interviewed on FITS News. She claimed she first serviced Alex Murdaugh at a private party with other locally powerful unnamed men where drugs were being consumed. She said the encounter turned into rape when he began choking her as she clawed at his arms to escape while being violently penetrated. Edwards said normally such an encounter would be handled by her madam's bouncer, but the madam chose not to intervene because the madam had an exchange of services agreement with Murdaugh. Edwards alleged at least 3 more similar violent sessions with Murdaugh in which she was beaten and where she was forced to service Murdaugh against her will by the madam and her armed bouncer. The accusations are being investigated by SLED. Forge Consulting Lawsuit. On September 12, 2022, Forge Consulting announced it would file a lawsuit against Alex Murdaugh and Bank of America because Forge suffered serious harm to its business reputation and credibility because of Murdaugh and BOA. Forge alleges Murdaugh set up a fake bank account using the Forge brand to take millions of dollars from his clients and colleagues, and further blames BOA for not doing basic due diligence to detect the fraud. Santis Christiani Lawsuit. On October 7, 2022, a lawsuit named Murdaugh, Crosby, Barnes, the PMPD firm, Lafitte, and Palmetto State Bank as part of a conspiracy to defraud plaintiff Manuel Santis Christiani of Chiapas, Mexico of accident settlement money he was awarded but never received. Criminal tax evasion. On December 16, 2022, Alex Murdaugh was indicted by the state grand jury on 9 charges of evading nearly $487,000 in state income taxes. The indictment reflects that he stole nearly $7 million meant for his law firm's bank accounts and failed to pay taxes on the ill-gotten gains. Convictions, civil judgments, settlements, and sanctions. In September 2021, Murdaugh gave broad powers of attorney to his son Buster, including the power to sell and dispose of his assets, which Buster proceeded to do. The Moselle property that was the scene of the murders of Maggie and Paul was rebranded as Cross Swamp Farm and listed for sale with an asking price of $3.9 million, and the Edisto Beach House was placed on the market for $920,000. On November 1st, a judge ordered the Murdaugh assets to be frozen. Buster and Alex sought to overturn it, saying they had no money to pay for food, medical insurance, and utilities. Murdaugh's assets were placed into a receivership, created because evidence suggested the Murdaugh family was moving and hiding money from potential creditors, including multiple plaintiffs. The Murdaugh family and attorneys have been trying to unwind the receivership in civil court. On October 14, 2021, concurrent with his release from the drug rehabilitation facility in Orlando, Murdaugh was taken into custody by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, SLED, on 2 felony counts of obtaining property by false pretenses related to the Satterfield case. Body cam footage of the arrest suggested he had significant diarrhea issues related to opioid withdrawal. In July 2022, Alex Murdaugh was indicted for the murder of his wife, Maggie, and his son, Paul. Prosecutors suggested a motive where Murdaugh sought a distraction from his financial crimes, which were beginning to go public, and to garner sympathy. Alex pleaded not guilty. On March 2, 2023, Alex Murdaugh was convicted of both murders. The following day, he was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Murdaugh is appealing the conviction, claiming the jury was tampered with by one of the court clerks. As of August 2024, it is under review by the state Supreme Court, and it remains an open question if there will be a new trial. Fraud and money laundering charges. On November 19, 2021, the state grand jury issued 5 indictments against Alex Murdaugh on 27 charges of embezzlement and other crimes, including breach of trust, fraudulent intent, money laundering, computer crimes, and forgery. The victims were Thomas L. Moore, patrol officer, Dion J. Martin, Gloria Satterfield, Murdaugh housekeeper, and Manuel Santis Christiani. Altogether, the fraud amount was close to $4.8 million, resulting in 88 criminal charges. On December 9th, an additional 21 criminal charges were filed connected to an alleged scheme that sought to defraud victims of more than $6 million. On January 21st, 2022, the state grand jury issued a further 23 criminal charges, which included 19 breaches of trust with fraudulent intent and 4 counts of computer crimes. The indictments allege that he stole more than $2.6 million from clients Natasha Thomas, Arthur Badger, Dion Martin, and the family of Hakeem Pinkney. On March 16, 2022, the state grand jury issued a superseding indictment against Murdaugh and Corey Howerton Fleming that includes 4 new charges against Murdaugh related to an alleged scheme to defraud multiple insurance companies in the course of surreptitiously delivering to Murdaugh's share of the proceeds. A further round of superseding indictments against Murdaugh were issued in April 2022 involving 4 charges of conspiring with former banker Russell Lucius Lafitte and former attorney Corey Howerton Fleming. On August 19, 2022, the state grand jury issued a new round of indictments against Murdaugh, Spencer Anwin Roberts, and Jerry K. Rivers. Murdaugh was indicted on 9 charges related to the theft of $295,000 from his brother and his old law firm. The indictments indicate he may have stolen nearly $8.8 million from more than a dozen people. The indictments allege crimes back to at least 2011. Murdaugh would secretly negotiate a settlement for his clients, then pay them only enough so they would be content and thankful. He would then steal the rest. His clients were usually minorities who were not well off. They included an injured state trooper, a deaf quadriplegic, a widower, an immigrant, several minors, and even dead people. Murdaugh allegedly used money orders given to an unnamed family member to help launder the cash. Although some of the amounts to Fleming and Lafitte overlap, as to the alleged amounts for Murdaugh, the state grand jury indicted Fleming on 23 charges for schemes to defraud victims of over $3.7 million. Lafitte had 21 charges against him for schemes to defraud victims of over $1.8 million. On September 14, 2023, Corey Fleming was sentenced to 13 years in prison for his role in stealing the insurance policy settlement. In August, Russell Lafitte was sentenced to 7 years in prison for his role in stealing money from insurance settlements. Under a plea deal, the indictments were reduced from 101 to 22 and were to be tried in state court. On November 17, 2023, Murdaugh pleaded guilty to all 22 of the charges in the state indictment. On November 29, 2023, he was sentenced to 27 years in prison for the state financial crimes. On May 24, 2023, the U.S. Attorney's Office, District of South Carolina announced that a federal grand jury returned an indictment of 22 counts for money laundering, wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud and bank fraud for a total of $12,425,254.32. As part of a plea deal with federal prosecutors, they chose 22 charges that were most representative of the victims. As part of the plea deal, he was to face up to 30 years in federal prison to be served concurrently with his state conviction on the same charges. The plea deal required he be truthful with prosecutors. Days before his sentencing, DOJ prosecutors posted a new court filing saying that Alex had failed a polygraph test, lied, and an additional $1.3 million in stolen money, and a further 11 victims were discovered since the plea deal was made. Nevertheless, the plea deal was retained, but with the new victims, the prison sentence was increased. On April 1, 2024, Murdaugh was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison for his financial fraud crimes, to run concurrently with the previous sentences, 2 life sentences for double murder and 27 years for state financial crimes, and to pay reparations of $8.7 million to the known 25 victims. What do you guys think of Alex? Leave a comment down below. Also, like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed the video. See you in the next video.